The Leafs win on the scoreboard in Ottawa, but lose big in the crease. What's next for Toronto in the wake of Joseph Woll's injury? We'll discuss that and recap the win over Ottawa on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. We do have new shows coming out each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So if you haven't yet, or you're new to the show, please, we'd ask that you subscribe to the podcast wherever you find your podcasts, are also up on YouTube. Dave, I mean, it's a bittersweet moment here in this postcast. The Leafs did win in regulation for the first time since November 17th. 4-3 was the final. The Leafs win part 2 of the Battle of Ontario, and we'll get into tonight's game and kind of recap it. But the story of the night, the play of Joseph Woll, which was quickly overshadowed by the injury to Joseph Woll.
It's like, when you watch any of those war movies where they get the win in the big battle and it's like, yeah, we won. And then you realize like one of your compadres dies in the battle.
Yeah.
It's hard to feel good about the win when you lose someone like that. Now, obviously, Joseph Woll is still with us. I'm not making that comparison, but you're just like, in the Discord chat, like it got grim, right? Like as soon as Joseph Woll went down, and I'm seeing on Twitter, season's over, this and that, and I'm like, it is so tough. Like when you have such a high and then it gets to a low, and that's what it felt like in this game, and that's what it felt like watching Leafs Twitter. As soon as Sheldon Keefe gave the update after the game, and you're like,
yeah,
you prayed and hoped that it wasn't going to be that bad.
But you knew it was going to be, though. Like you knew it was going to be.
Yeah.
Like for those who missed the game and maybe are waking up and aren't sure exactly what happened, or you went to bed, fell asleep in the second period. Joseph Woll in the third went to go and make a pretty routine save. Just kind of went down into his butterfly and stabbed his glove at an incoming puck. It's not even as though it was like a hard shot, but tweaked something in his lower body. You saw him. He dropped the puck and then just kind of dropped to the ice. And the refs kind of blew the play down dead just moments afterward, realizing, okay, there's something up with this guy, and was unable to put any weight whatsoever on, was it his left leg? I believe it was. Left leg. So whether it's, a knee or a groin, whatever it is that he tweaked here, yeah, it didn't look good at all. Needed help getting to the dressing room, and still apparently when reporters were in there was after the game was still unable to put any weight on that leg. So that's not good news at all for Joseph Woll, who had really started to come into his own. Like this was his fifth straight start, and some of it was because Samsonov had been sick and was unable to go. But he'd been playing some really quality hockey, and he bailed this team out a lot over the course of the season, and he bailed them out again tonight in many, many circumstances to even keep them in this game and give them an opportunity not to pick up just 1 point, but actually get 2 full points within 60 minutes for the first time in like 3 weeks. It's a tough blow for the Maple Leafs, such a tough blow. And I listened to some of the comments from a lot of the players post game, and they're gutted for this guy. Like he'd been doing nothing but battling all year for them, giving them an opportunity to stay in games and win games. And now he's going to be out for, an expected period of time. The quote from Sheldon Keefe was he will miss some time. Didn't quite say exactly how much time he's going to miss. He's going to be reevaluated in Toronto on Friday, but this is now a Ilya Samsonov and Martin Jones tandem. Dave, how does that make you feel?
There are certain words that I cannot say right now, and there were certain words I could not say when I saw the Joseph Woll coming off the ice and not being able to put his leg. Like, there were very same words I wanted to say and I could not say in that moment. And look, I mean, injuries happen, guys. I mean, look, Tampa was started their season without Andrei Vasilevsky, right? Like, these things do happen. But you see how Joseph Woll just, like, that game, the Leafs had no business, zero business being in that game for the first two periods.
Dude,
If it
that could have been
wasn't for Joseph Woll.
it could have been 4-0 after the first. Like
Yeah,
Tarasenko could have had a hat trick in the first period if it wasn't for Joe Wall.
no, and that's something the Leafs had not been getting from Ilya Samsonov, right, this season. Really, like, you think about the last few years, it really hasn't been a Leaf goaltender giving performances like that, like we've seen from Joseph Woll. And this isn't the first time Joseph Woll has done this season. Like, you think back to when he first got into the crease. I think back to that game in Dallas where he's making miraculous save after miraculous save. It's when this team doesn't have it, when this team isn't performing at its capabilities, is Joseph Woll that's kept them in those games. And that's why everyone's like, they don't have the same confidence that Ilya Samsonov can do the same thing. Martin Jones, only got to see him for a few minutes, but you also see what his stats were like with the Toronto Marlies this season. And yeah, I don't blame anyone that's like, this is not looking great, for especially when it's considered a long-term thing. Like, this isn't 2 weeks, 3 weeks. This sounds like it could be, as Sheldon he says, sometime. Sometime
Yeah.
usually means extended period.
Yeah, and I mean, we're not going to speculate as to how much
Mm.
time it is until we hear more, obviously. But you damn well know that like this is going to be Ilya Samsonov's net going forward. Like this isn't going to be a 1A 1B with him and Martin Jones. Like Samsonov now, this is his chance to kind of take over the net and run with it a little bit here, right? This is his opportunity to get a bulk of starts and maybe try and get into a rhythm. And I mean, I know that he hasn't been very good this season. He's been poor actually for the most part of the season so far. He's got an 878 save percentage and 358 goals against. But last year, you did see a pretty solid goaltender. Like you saw him when he did get a string of games and really get going and go on a run where he got into 4 or 5 in a row. He really started to play better. And he ended the year with what, a 919 save percentage, a 233 goals against average. So they somehow have to get that goaltender back. He's there. It's there, right? He that goaltender is in there. But you know what would help him? Definitely if the team played better in front, right? That's really been the biggest difference between what we saw last year and what we're seeing this year. If you look at the underlying numbers, they're giving up way more chances and some high danger chances as well than they were a year ago. And I think that's something where now you have an injury here to Joseph Woll. You got to sit there if you're the team and be like, hey, we gotta help out our goaltenders now. I mean, we can't let these guys keep getting peppered. 41 shots on goal, 41 shots on goal tonight. To Ottawa, who, to be honest, they're like a middle of the pack team. It's not like Ottawa's out here. They're not the Vegas Golden Knights or anything like that. And they got crushed by this team. So they got to play better as a team. And I think that will allow Samsonov and now Martin Jones, who's definitely going to get some games, to probably play better in net. And hopefully we see the Sammy of last year, the Sammy of old, kind of start to shine back through because they're going to need it now. They definitely are going to need it now. Let's take a quick break. We can come back and we can kind of continue this conversation and break down what we saw tonight from the Maple Leafs and also tee up the weekend game against the Nashville Predators. So life after Woll starts pretty quick against one of the hottest teams in hockey and one a team that has been putting the puck in the back of the net a lot too. So a big time challenge in their first game without Joe Woll, and that'll be on Saturday. So we'll tee that one up as well in just a little bit. But before we get into all that, I do want to tell you about one of today's show sponsors, and it's our good pals over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophies? Also, what keeps your ride or die alive? eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the price you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. We're hosts here at Locked On Leafs. If you are new to the program, we appreciate you swinging by. Hopefully you're enjoying the conversation so far. Just a reminder, we do have new podcasts coming out each and every day. You can find them wherever you download your podcast at. Also, you can watch the video format on YouTube as well. Hit subscribe and leave a like as well. And a comment down below. Let us know what's your level of concern for the Maple Leafs in net now, sans this Joseph Woll situation. So let us know in the comment section down below. I'm curious though, Dave. You see there's now injuries are really starting to pile up, right? We got the Klingberg news that came down the other day. He's done for the year. You probably still are looking at a 3 to 4 week timeline, I would think, for Timothy Liljegren. So not that close. You've got similar timeline on Mark Giordano, so not all that close. Does this injury now to Joseph Woll, if he's going to be out for a similar amount of time, 4 to 6 weeks perhaps, or however long he might be out, do you think this maybe would speed up that trade process to try and get another blue liner in here that could maybe help Samsonov and Martin Jones?
Well, I think the difficulty here is the Leafs might be motivated to try to make a move. Takes two to tango. And, right now, I don't know how many teams are throwing lifelines out to the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're not throwing lifelines out, I'm telling you that much. They're
no.
Right. But yeah, Brad Treliving, he can say that, they're interested. They want to add, but it's one thing to talk about it. It's another to, and Brendan Shanahan, I don't know if you saw the interview he had with Gino Reda the other day. He's like, yeah. Brad is working the phones. He's working the phones. Well, I would like if those phone calls would lead to something, right? Or be, lead to some tangible work to be done, right? Yeah, not every trade doesn't happen overnight. It takes a while sometimes, especially if there's a lot of complexities with the trade. But this isn't a problem that's going to go away even when some of those guys return, because we know that this blue line, and we saw it tonight, this blue line needs help. Yeah. And it's needed help since the start of the season, and it's going to need help even as you get closer to the trade deadline, or even if you make one move. It's probably going to take a couple moves to get this blue line right.
Yeah. That's I think what we're anticipating and expecting also. Okay, so despite losing Joseph Woll, the team did win the game. They went on to close it out. They scored an insurance marker to make it 4-2, and then they did give one up. Martin Jones did allow one goal there, but was able to hang on and get the full 2 points. Again, the Leafs' first regulation win since November 17th. But I got to tell you, Dave, they didn't earn that victory. This is one of those games. And look, Toronto's been on the other side of this many times as well, right? Where you look at the game overall, you watch it and you say Toronto dominated but came up short. Well, tonight the Sens dominated, but they came up short. Toronto pulled out the victory despite Ottawa winning 67% of the minutes, outshooting Toronto 41-22, outchancing Toronto 29-27, but 16-7 in high danger chances. Yet they lose the game and Toronto picks up 2 points.
I think the big one here is you look at why the Sens lost this game. It's a clear example of you can dominate, you can get those chances, but if you're not tidy in your own areas in certain moments of the game, you look at letting Mitch Marner get in on a breakaway. Usually that's not advisable. David Kampf, kind of leaving him, I would say unmarked, but no, not picking him up in front of the net. Letting William Nylander get in on a prime scoring chance. It's usually not something I would advise either. Like, it's moments like that.
The giveaway on the third goal, right? Like it was a nice play by Toronto, but a giveaway at the blue line, and then all of a sudden Toronto's got an on-man rush the other way, tic-tac-toe in the back of the net.
Yeah, beautiful play by
great
Domi and
play.
Yarncroke. But yeah, I mean that's for if you're looking at how the Leafs were able to pick up the win, they were playing brutal, they were getting outplayed, but they stuck with it. They found a way to find chinks in the Senators' armor. And we said put pressure on that defense. When they started finally putting pressure on that defense, they made mistakes. And it's sometimes good teams, when they're not playing their best, if they're able to take advantage of mistakes that their opposition gives them windows of opening to take, you got to take them. And at least you got to give the Leafs credit for doing that. Yeah. But yeah, that's a game where I don't know if I'm celebrating all too much if I'm the coaching staff or the players.
Yeah, I mean, afterwards, you snuck away with a win there, right? Like I'm looking at it right now, the underlying numbers. I mean, obviously, we watched the game; you could tell Ottawa dominated, but even the underlying numbers are supporting it. Like, legitimately, 67% of the minutes were won. But if you look at even the top line, they were severely outplayed. Like Austin Matthews tonight. I was taking a look at what his numbers were, his on ice numbers, his the underlying numbers, and his expected goals was like 30%, which you don't normally see in Austin Matthews. Like that's not what you typically see. Mitch Marner also not very good tonight in terms of expected goals, 21% for him. So the top six of Toronto got outworked heavily, and that needs to change, man. We talked about it going in. Let's see some consistency from those guys. They had finally started to break through. You had the hat trick for Marner against Seattle. You had 2 goals for Matthews against Boston. And then all of a sudden, they come into Ottawa and still cannot get it going and score in back-to-back games. It's so incredibly frustrating. Well, I know Marner scored, but I mean Matthews, I was referring to, scoring in back-to-back games. So let's get to our 3 stars, though. It's weird doing a 3 stars because I had a tough time coming up with my 3 stars because I wasn't sure how many people really deserved the credit for tonight's win. But I'm curious to see what you came up with. Give me your 3rd star, Dave.
Like I was going into saying, could I just give Joseph Woll all 3 stars? Like, could we just do that? But
you know what? I'm willing. I am willing to do that. Like I'm willing to definitely give.
I do have 3 stars, though. I will say I do have 3 stars, but there's only actually one specific player that gets a 3 stars. For me.
Okay, so we're kind of in the same boat. Go ahead.
So 3rd star, and this might be a first that we've ever done this. I'm giving it to Mike Johnston.
Johnson, by the way.
Johnson. Sorry, I have a buddy who's also Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson.
I called him once, and he never let me live it down. By the way, he's like Chris Johnston, Mike Johnson. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, that's where I get. Yeah, good. Hopefully, Mike doesn't listen to this and hate me. The moment I heard his voice the first time, I'm like, oh no.
The Mystic Mike when he did the
Yeah.
Mystic Mike on the pregame.
Yeah, I'm like, oh no.
Yep,
Like
same thing.
but he gutted it out. Bad voice, clearly fighting through something. And and you heard, like, even when his voice wasn't at his best, he gave the people what they needed. He gave that
Yeah,
analysis. So he got my 3rd star. He gutted
yeah,
that out like a warrior.
and he always brings the energy. Always brings the energy too, right? Even when he's got barely any voice there. Yeah, that's a good one. I'm gonna give him my 3rd star as well. 2nd star though. I'll move right to my 2nd star. And again, I cheated because I always like to cheat. I get to the 3rd line. I thought that the 3rd line actually played well again tonight. We talked about the goal that they scored, which was a big goal at the time. It was just a really nice play. Like they break it up in the defensive end and then transition themselves up ice, a little tic tac toe, and it's into the back of the net. Nice feed from Domi and a good finish from Calle Ehrencroft. His what's that, 6th of the year now for him. So that line's providing the type of secondary scoring that this team needs. They now need to get some primary scoring back into this thing because they're actually getting it from David Camp, who scored tonight. They got one from Yarncroc. And then, of course, the night they finally get one from Nylander and Marner, they win the game. Go figure. But that's kind of what we've needed to see from this group. It seems like it's not often that primary and secondary scoring is firing on the same night. Tonight they kind of were a little bit in terms of is how it ended, but at the 3rd line they were exceptional tonight. They were in the offensive end for a majority of the night. I thought that they were controlled the play. You look at the expected numbers, 99% expected goals for that 3rd line tonight at 5-on-5. So I thought that they were really, really, really good for Toronto. So had to definitely put them in these 3 stars here.
Yeah, I really like their game tonight. Nobody really had like over the top amazing game, but I thought they were solid. And they need to be
Yeah.
solid because you know when you're on the road, teams try to find a line to match up against and try to expose the matchup. And that credit that 3rd line, they did not allow that to be the case, right? So I thought, yeah, they're very much deserving of a unit star, I guess.
Look at Nick Robertson tonight on the ice. Hold on, let me see. Yeah, on the ice for 7 shots, only 1 shot against. So, and to be fair, I mean, they did get only offensive zone starts. They literally had 0 D zone faceoffs, 100% O zone starts, 1 in the neutral zone, 3 in the offensive zone. So they were put in a favorable spot, obviously. But that's kind of what you need to do with this line. They're not a overly stout defensive shutdown line, so you got to put them in a position to have success. And tonight was one of those nights. So kudos to Keith for doing that and for them for executing. Your 2nd star.
The penalty kill. The one
Oh,
thing that has improved since the beginning of the year, I have been worried about this penalty kill, and I think they've they said it on the broadcast. I think they only allow like 1 power play goal in like their last like 27 opportunities or something like that.
yeah, I'll look it up really quickly, but yeah, like they've only allowed I think like 7 or 8 of their last 9 games. They've only allowed a power play goal in like one of them. I think they may have allowed 2 goals in that game, but like only one game in the last 8 or 9 have they got scored on the shorthanded.
And to me, that's a huge improvement considering no. I mean, I know Mark Giordano just got hurt, but that's no Mark Giordano, who's a big penalty killer for you. Timothy Liljegren would be technically a penalty killer on this team, right? That's the one thing where you can hang your hat on because penalty killing is a lot about effort, right? Getting in the lanes, blocking shots, keeping those high danger chances to a minimum on the penalty kill. And like at the end of the game, you see Simon Benoit take that penalty, and you're just like, oh, like last thing you want. And they snuffed it down. They kept They kept Ottawa off the board, even though Ottawa tried to dim the lights to give themselves an advantage.
Yeah, I did see that. Over the last 10 games, 90% penalty kill.
Yeah. Now, I do think, there's going to be, like, they're not as bad as they were to start the year. I don't know if they're going to be as good as they've been the last few weeks, but I think they'll equal out. And I'm definitely a fan of how their penalty kill has been lately.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to this penalty kill, and I think that Sheldon Keefe was trying to figure out how it all works out best. I trying to remember. I mean, are we seeing as much Matthews on the PKs we did earlier in the year? I'm trying to remember if I
Not
saw him play much on the PK
not
tonight.
not really. Like, his ice time has been high, right?
Yeah, like
And
he only played
he only
3
played,
seconds.
20 minutes tonight.
Well, he had 3 seconds of time on the penalty kill.
Yeah.
Right, Nylander 1 second. So, when they were putting those guys out there on the PK, it wasn't successful. Now you look over the course of the last, 10 games or so, they're finding out, okay, well, McKay being back and healthy helps as well. But they're like, okay, Camp and Marner, those are our guys. Yarncroc and Noah Gregor, those are our guys. We're just going to roll with that. Whereas it felt like earlier in the year, they were trying to like rotate dudes in and trying to have like 5, 6 different forwards who were killing penalties for them. And I don't know, just didn't seem to work. But now they're in a groove and it seemed to be working out a little bit better for them. So yeah, hopefully that continues. Obviously, it's a key part of the game. Joe Woll's the first star, though, from
Yes.
both of us, I assume.
And the only thing about that game that I hate for him, on top of the injury, he loses the win. He doesn't get the win because Martin Jones got credit for the win because of the goal that the Sens scored. So it's unfortunate that he didn't get to see it out, but he should have held his head up high because, man, like, it's been so long since I've seen a goaltending performance like that where even when the Senators were on a breakaway, you're nervous anytime a team's on a breakaway, has a high danger chance. But to know that Joseph Woll was just on his game, haven't had that feeling really that much with Leafs goaltending. We've always kind of said Leafs goaltending just needs to be average to above average.
Yeah.
Joseph Woll was elite tonight.
Yes, he was.
And that's something that you hope he can come back to what he was, or is, I should say. And because that's an element that this team is going to need is one come playoff time. If hopefully everything stays good without him in the lineup.
Yeah, they got to make the playoffs, Dave. They
got to make the playoffs. They got to rely on Samsonov. Maybe they got to call up the Hildebeest if all else fails.
That's an interesting comment. The Hildebeest is absolutely killing it in the American League. And he's 22, 23. So he's not like a typical, D plus 1 year. He was drafted as like a double overager. So he's
22.
He's roughly, he's like an age where it's like, okay, let's see what he's got. If he's succeeding down in the minors, perhaps if things aren't going well with Samsonov and with Martin Jones for a few weeks here while Woll's out with an injury, perhaps we do get to see the Hildebeest at some point. But obviously, we do want to wish Woll some support. Hopefully, it's not as long-term injury as it looked, but it didn't look great. Obviously, putting zero weight on that leg, on that knee, whatever the injury was. I'm sure we'll get some more information on it tomorrow or over the weekend, as he gets it checked up again once they get to Toronto. All right, let's take one more quick break. When we get back, we'll tee up Saturday night's game. Got Nashville coming to town, so life moves on in the NHL. No Joe Woll, don't matter. Still got games to play. Whoever is in net for this game, and it'll definitely be a test. So we'll kind of tee up that one on the other side. But first, Dave, a word from our show sponsor.
Yep, today's show is also brought to you by Jace Medical. I know we come to sports to escape from some of the crazy realities of real life, but can we just talk for a minute about preparing for real life. According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. It's the holiday season. Maybe you're traveling somewhere to celebrate with family. The last thing you want is to be unprepared to take care of yourself or a loved one if you fall ill. Jace Medical can give you peace of mind before you even hop on a flight. The Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics that treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, skin infections, among others. This stuff could happen to any of us. Visit jacemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jacemedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti. We will turn the page on this second go at the Battle of Ontario. It's now evened up at ones with Toronto winning this one, and they'll play again down the road, obviously, and then we'll get back into it then. But for now, Toronto's got to turn the page because they got a pretty good squad coming to town. The Nashville Predators coming to Toronto, coming off of 3 straight wins, including a dub against the Tampa Bay Lightning on Thursday. 4-1 was the win there. They've won 8 of their last 10.
One actually.
5-1 was the final?
Yeah.
So they got another one. Okay, so I saw it 4-1 like late. 5-1 was the final. Look at that. They've been one of the highest scoring teams in the NHL this year. It's going to be a tough challenge, Dave.
Yeah, I remember at the beginning of the season, I thought this team would be meddling with the playoff spot, but part of what gave me pause for concern was this offense, right? I didn't think they had enough on offense. Like, their defense is still not, up to snuff, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't expect their offense to pick up like it has. And, one Mr. Ryan O'Reilly has made it known that he is extra excited to be back and go up against the Leafs again.
Yeah.
But, like,
he scored twice last time they played, didn't he? Twice? Like,
yep.
If I recall, including the overtime winner. So, like, these teams already played once, and Nashville, they won that game. They came back. I think Toronto was up like 2-0 or something like that, or 3-1 perhaps. And Nashville came back and then won the game in overtime.
It was
I do remember
the Leafs penalty kill that kind of failed them in that game. I think like one of Ryan O'Reilly's goals was on the power play. So a little bit of that. And you look like UC Saros has been so good. Roman Josi is back to being Roman Josi. He had a goal and assist against the Lightning tonight. Ryan McDonough also had a goal and assist. So he seems to be finding himself with the Lightning as well. It's a very tough task right now. If you're
the Preds, they're coming in right now too. Like, just defensively, offensively, they're in the top 6 or 7 in almost every single category you look at. Like, top to bottom, they've been pretty elite. Like, expected goals, they're 6th in the NHL and expected goals at 5-on-5. You look at the goal differential, they're right up there in the NHL. So this is a team that is they can score. They've got Philip Forsberg, who's having an unbelievable season to go along with Riley, obviously. There's some good players on that squad that Toronto's gonna have a handful with for sure, and hopefully they can hopefully they can bring their A game, because they have not brought an A game. They haven't had a 60-minute effort pretty well all season. I think you can maybe look at that Boston game the other night, and that was pretty close. What I will say is, Nashville, they are an older team, a little bit of a slower team, I suppose. Like, this is the type of team that Toronto doesn't struggle as much with. So I think they should be okay as long as they play up to their capabilities, right? You need to see Austin Matthews playing like Austin Matthews. Got to see Marner and Nylander going, doing their thing. And then obviously everyone's got to pitch in defensively to try and help. I would imagine it'll be Samsonov in net Hopefully he gets over the sniffles that he's had for the last week and gets into the game. But either way, it will definitely be a challenging game for Toronto. But looking forward to it. Should be a good game though. Like ultimately, it should be a really solid game against with two playoff teams. Ultimately, is what they both are. So I'm going to definitely be enjoying that one. All right, buddy. We'll wrap things up. Oh, you got one. Give me one final thing.
I'm
Go
just
ahead.
saying, if you're give any benefit, the Leafs do come out against playoff opponents. So
Exactly. That's what I mean. Like they they play up to their opponents, they play down to their opponents. So you got Nashville 8-2 in their last 10. They usually wake up for those games and show them who's boss, basically. Um, we'll see though. We will see. All right, that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcast platforms, including up on YouTube, and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on X at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti. Follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. Go ahead, leave a like on the video if you've enjoyed it. Comment down below your level of concern with the Leafs with Joseph Woll's injury. Let us know down below in the comment section on YouTube, or you can reach out to us on Twitter as well to give us your answer. We'll be back with another episode for you guys on Monday. We'll recap what happens over the weekend and get you set for a little trip to New York, which is next week as well. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.